Okay, so you read the title correctly. Recovery is mostly a scam, and today I'll explain why. Right now, the recovery industry, as I'll call it, is having its breakout moment. Ice baths, compression boots, red light therapy, magnesium sprays, at-home saunas, foam rollers, as well as obviously the continued conveyor belt of supplements. There are now recovery centers that are popping up everywhere, and social media is full of influencers talking about their recovery routine or their recovery stack like it's some sort of sacred ritual. And again, let me be blunt, most of this is a scam. Not necessarily a malicious one, but definitely a distraction, and a very marketable one at that, with a lot of hype. And it's pulling rugby players away from what actually matters. And so today I want to show you what recovery really is, why it's important, and how to stop wasting your time and money on things that don't really move the needle at all. And I've even got something to help me along the way. If you're new here, I'm TJ, I'm the guy behind Rugby Muscle. This podcast and the training company of Rugby Muscle is dedicated to changing the way amateur rugby players view their strength and conditioning. And of course, today we're doing that through a recovery lens, which if you enjoy, please do drop a comment because I can do more about recovery. So let me know in the comments below if this is what you have interest in, if it can help you, let's do more about recovery. Or if you're interested in just taking your training to the next level, all of the links will be in the description for coaching and training and programming and all of that sort of stuff. Let's get into it. The modern recovery industry, as I'll call it, has one main goal: to sell you something that makes you feel better. But feeling better is not the same as actually recovering, and we're going to get into that today. And it's definitely not the same as getting stronger, fitter, faster, and better at rugby. Think about it. You can sit in an ice bath, chuck on some recovery boots, chug a perfect curcumin recovery drink, go to a yoga class. In the moment, these things are making you feel like you're doing something good. But what does this really mean for you as an athlete? Honestly, not a whole lot. There just isn't the science on these things showing that they improve what you want to improve. Remember, your goal, why you do strength and conditioning, is to be at your best as an athlete every single rugby match. That means that you need to be stronger, more explosive, fitter, and more athletic. That is why you train. Now, in comes the recovery industry trying to sell you products and things to do. That's not how recovery works. You don't need necessarily recovery. What you need is adaptation and better performance. So let me show you what I mean. I just bought this $5 whiteboard here so I can draw this out for you. And if you do appreciate that, let me know in the YouTube comments. I will still talk you through it if you are listening only, so don't worry too much. So what I'm going to draw here is the line of your performance, what happens when you train and what happens when you recover. So this line here is your performance. When you hit a training stimulus, all of a sudden it's a challenge to your body. This creates fatigue. Fatigue means your performance drops down, but over time with the right conditions, you recover. This part here is your recovery, and if your recovery is handled well, you will adapt and you will come back better. See how the performance is at a higher level than it was before. This is how progress happens. This is the loop that happens every single gym session, every sprint, every rugby match kind of gives you this result. Of course, we can be more direct, and that's what we do with strength and conditioning, but the same still applies, and this is what we're trying to recover from, right? This part here is recovery. But as you can see here, recovery isn't some sort of separate thing that you do. It's a part of the process, and the only goal of recovery is to help you complete this loop consistently. So you might look at this and think, if I can increase this recovery part and do this faster, that means better results, right? Unfortunately, that's not quite how it works. So first and foremost, we need to understand, what do we mean by recovery? And there are three main reasons that you actually need to consider your recovery and what this means for you as a rugby athlete. And I'll go through them now using the graph that I drew already, and we'll just keep going back to this. The first reason that you need to consider your recovery is to be able to train hard enough to make progress, right? If you're under recovered, if you train during this part where you are fatigued, you cannot push. You're just going to go through through the motions and you're not going to get a better result. Understand that this fatigue and this is actual a measured performance. It's not feeling tired. It's not feeling crap. This is something that we can really measure and know that we are performing worse. It's why I like to do heavy lifting close to or at failure, because then we know how well you can perform. Sometimes you'll go into the gym and you're feeling real tired, but if you get a good warm up in, you start to feel a little bit better, but maybe you don't even feel better, but you still lift heavier and you get a PR. Were you under recovered in that session? Of course you weren't. You're able to perform better, right? So you don't need the massage gun, you just need to get to work. However, if you train before your actual performance is recovered, right? So it's going back to this graph, maybe we train at this point here, our performance is already dropped, right? So say you did a leg day, which I'm not proposing anyone does, but you know, your classic heavy bodybuilding leg day, and for the next week your legs are going to feel obliterated, your performance level drops all the way down, and you try to do some more squats maybe the next day, maybe the day after, you're going to be under recovered and you will not be able to get a good enough stimulus in to get some quality training. The solution then is two different options. Firstly, we could use this and say, okay, this is over the course of a week. So we wait a week to see if we've recovered properly and we've gotten stronger, and we keep going every single week to see if we've got better. Or two, we can train with less volume so that this is now not over a week, this is over the course of 2 or 3 days. So this stimulus has dropped us less down. Maybe we can even draw this, right? So maybe the heavier leg day would look more like something like this. So we'd drop even further down. We would take longer to recover, to come back, and then be up. Awful drawing, but you should understand the point, right? And remember, all we're focusing on with this first recovery focus is the ability to train hard enough to create an effective stimulus in the first place, which leads me to the second recovery focus, which is to actually make those adaptations. Because no matter how good or tough your training is, if you don't recover from it properly, you don't adapt, you might as well not have trained in the first place. So if I go back to this one more time, right? If I draw a dotted, which is your baseline here, anything below this line or even at this line, you know, there is no point of training. This is below adaptation. This is detraining, right? Anything above this line here is an improvement. So I'm not concerned about how quickly you get back to this baseline from here. I'm concerned about this area here, this adaptation. Because if you don't get above the line, that means no gains, no speed, no fitness improvements. And this can be tricky to judge, because if you train like an idiot, maybe you train with too much volume, maybe you don't train often enough, maybe you don't actually create an effective stimulus because your training is kind of crap in the first place. It doesn't matter how good your recovery is, your performance will not improve. The recovery industry knows this, and quite frankly does not care. They will still happily sell you another gadget or get you stretching for 30 minutes. And you know what happens? Nothing. As far as making any adaptations to your earlier training is concerned, you are not getting better because you haven't produced the proper stimulus. Your training is not organized properly in order to get better. And the worst part actually is that some of this, not only will be a waste of time, but there is strong literature to suggest that the different ice heat protocols and some of the recovery boots actually blunt the adaptations. So if you see our training here without the use of tools gives us the stimulus, the recovery come back better. The use of some of these tools might increase this recovery speed a little bit, but it comes at the cost of the benefit, the reason that you're going to the gym in the first place. So saving a little recovery time here and there may be a good thing, but if it stops you from doing the thing that you're in the gym to do, not a good idea. Now, there is a time where this may be of use, particularly for rugby players, and that's the third recovery focus. That is to handle the demands of the rugby game, right? Rugby is chaos, big collisions, lots of sprints and fatigue. You need to be at your best to perform every game. Now, throughout a rugby season, you don't really want to be carrying soreness, fatigue, or injury risk from week to week. So this is where some people might see the benefit, especially at a high level, of certain advanced recovery protocols, because it is worth sacrificing any minor potential gains within a given week if you've got a game that you've got to be at your best for. Of course, this also works if a game has been a particularly brutal one and you just want to feel better the next day. You can still take advantage of some of these things, but it is worth bearing in mind that recovery still isn't about like being refreshed and just feeling better. It's just about being ready to go again. And the odds that you're going to feel like so much better after a brutal game, like, I don't really buy that, right? The brutality of rugby is there for everyone to see, right? And the best cure for this is just going to be time. If you're smashing into each other, there is just no solution that's going to have you feeling perfect the next day. It's just a price that you have to pay for playing the awesome game of rugby. So the best recovery from this is just going to be time. Well, time and then your current preparedness, because the fitter and stronger that you are, the more physical stress you're able to handle. If you can bench 100 kilos, then 60 kilos for 10 reps is going to be a walk in the park, and it's not going to demand a lot of you for your recovery processes, right? You're not going to feel chest soreness the next day as a result of that 60 kilos. But if your max is only 65 kilos, then it's a completely different story. Likewise, if you can run 5K in say 21 minutes, a 35-minute 5K is probably going to be a chill session for you. But if you've never even run 30 minutes in the first place, let alone done a 5K all out, you go and try and do that, you're going to be in trouble. Combine all 5 elements of rugby strength and conditioning, so your power, your speed, as well as the strength and fitness I've spoken about here, as well as your athleticism, your ability to move as an athlete in general. Combine all of those 5 things, get a real high score. The better you are, the better you'll recover. And this is really where you're misled with this whole notion of what recovery really is, because recovery is not something that you do after training. It is built into your training and an integral part of this process. It's about how your training is organized so that you can perform consistently. Your week needs some level of flow. It needs high days, it needs low days, it needs consistent volume and proper nutrition. And that's what the process of proper strength and conditioning is all about, because it's this process that makes you a better athlete, and being a better athlete generally means you're going to recover better. If you just focus on the part with all the tools and the gadgets and stuff, then I wouldn't be surprised if you're just constantly spinning your wheels and just not getting better anyway. So yeah, recovery is important, but it's not something you buy. It's not sexy. It's a part of the process. It's built into your training, your lifestyle, your habits. That's why I have the Training Week Playbook linked in the description for you to buy. £7. You can get it in the description below. It's also why I'm going to be putting together a free recovery mini course, 3 modules showing you how to completely understand recovery for rugby athletes, how to prioritize the big rocks of recovery, and then how to utilize the advanced methods when they actually make sense. It will be completely free. I'll put the link for that in the description. Obviously, all members of Rugby Muscle, that's Team Rugby Muscle and Programming, if you want to take a step further, you'll get access to this stuff as well. I'll put the links to all of that in the description below. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Hit the thumbs up button if you haven't done so already. YouTube will recommend another one of my videos for you if you're watching on there, or if you're listening to this on the podcast, find another episode to enjoy. Either way, I'll see you soon.